Oh, okay, yeah.
The sound of John Googling.
Finding things
Learning.
out. Well, no, just reminding myself, because I watch stuff like this and I go, oh, I know that face, or I know that name, and it's like well, it's a bit like, it's a good metaphor for this program, isn't it? It's like archaeology, like digging up an unwanted visitor.
That's what you call having a poo.
Don't put this in the pre-titles.
No, I won't.
Britain, an ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, to the 5th episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth, on the south coast of England.
I'm John Pountney, and I'm in the south of Wales. Still in Wales, South Wales.
And I'm Ross in Dorchester in southern England. In today's episode, we're going to cover Nigel Kneale's The Stone Tape.
The Stone Tape was broadcast on BBC Two as a Christmas ghost story in 1972. It was written by Nigel Kneale, best known as the writer of Quatermass, for whose juxtaposition of science and superstition is a frequent theme. Peter Brock, played by Michael Bryant, is the petulant head of a research team for Ryan Electronics. His team is developing a new recording medium that will give the company an edge over its Japanese competitors. They move into an old Victorian mansion that's been renovated for their use. On arrival, they learn that the refurbishment of one of the rooms remains incomplete, the builders having refused to work in it because it is supposedly haunted. The room with its stone walls is a remnant of the original building, with foundations dating back to the Saxon era. After the team witnessed the haunting, in particular by Jill Greeley, an emotionally sensitive computer programmer played by Jane Asher, Brock hypothesizes that it is not a ghost, but somehow the stone in the room has preserved an image of a girl's death. This stone tape may be the new recording medium they've been seeking. Realizing that the phenomenon occurring in the room is far older than the house, Jill theorizes that the stone tape can be recorded over and over again, like a magnetic recording tape. Jill realizes that the girl's death they are hearing is masking a much older recording, left many thousands of years ago. Returning to the room one last time, Jill's senses are besieged by a powerful, malevolent presence from the much degraded older recording. Critically acclaimed at the time of broadcast, it remains well regarded to this day as one of Nigel Kneale's best and most terrifying plays. Since its broadcast, the hypothesis of residual haunting, that ghosts are recordings of past events made by the natural environment, has come to be known as the stone tape theory.
Yes, correct.
There you are.
Well,
So
I'm glad it's factually accurate, John.
Yeah. The guy I want to put forward the hypothesis that the guy that owns the company, Mr. Ryan, that you don't see,
Never see him, yeah.
is the same Ryan that runs Ryanair, the airline. Because at several points when they do go into a very strange Irish accent,
He himself.
Yes.
it's implied that he's Irish.
That he is Irish.
It's obvious that it's whoever runs Ryanair.
Right.
Which I thought that was confusing because they imply that this was like a family homestead of he himself? But it wasn't an island. Oh
no! In the opening sequence, they kind of suggest that he has chosen it specifically to be the site for his research and development team, which is already straight away the most balmy thing you could ever imagine. Right, okay, cutting edge scientific research. Where should we do it? Should we do it in a bespoke laboratory, in a bespoke lab somewhere? Yeah. No, let's find an old, decrepit Victorian mansion
and do it
in Middle England
Which
somewhere.
Takes a lot of money. Yeah, it takes a lot of time and money to do up. Yeah.
Well, they do mention that, though, don't they? That a new build could have been done at a fifth of the price or something like that.
Yes.
I'm sure that's shoehorned into the script.
So this programme begins with some incredibly, I would say, dated but also atmospheric electronic
sound
music.
Effects.
I love the music. I've written great intro, non-music music.
With Jane Asher driving, what car is it, John?
It's an Austin Maxi. I've got a theory about this already, based entirely upon the gearbox of the Austin Maxi.
So I was going to say, she basically gets freaked out by parallel parking, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She can't she gets trapped between two reversing trucks and just goes, woo! And then reverses into a
pile of sand.
A pile of sand. But go on, John, what's the theory about the gearbox?
Well, the Austin Maxi famously had a cable-operated gearbox, which I have suffered in. I had a Morris 1800, which had the same gearbox. So not the actual gearbox. The gear change was remotely operated with cables rather than the more conventional rod-type change on a front-wheel drive car. And to get that car into reverse was absolute hell on earth. And I think this is what, it starts a day off badly.
That's what's triggered Jane Asher.
Yeah, she can't get the bastard Maxi into reverse because these two trucks look like they're coming together, basically, don't they?
If it was a POV shot, it looked like her eyesight was going in and out of focus as well.
Know.
But she just couldn't handle that sci-fi logo for Ryan Electronics.
Very badly stuck on two old horse boxes.
But I am currently rewatching all the Final Destination movies in order with my wife.
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of anything worse, but there we are.
Oh, because someone told me that there's a bit of a twist with the
Peter Cushing's in one.
With the mythology on it. However, there's a bit in it where someone gets stuck in a drive-in with some trucks sort of backing into them. I was just wondering if that might have been influenced by
maybe
the Stone tape.
It's a very daft and not very. It's an ignominious start to what I think is a very, very good drama. There doesn't seem to be any sense of peril, and you do wonder why she's having such a tiz about nothing, basically.
Well, it's because it says here she is emotionally sensitive.
Yes, an emotionally sensitive computer programmer.
She is a woman, a female.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
So she gets out of the car after crashing into some sand because she can't get that Maxi into reverse.
Yeah, well, she gets into reverse and then just goes backwards right up some sand. Why they need sand delivered to a technology park? I don't know. Maybe they're going to sit in sand like Brian Wilson and re-record some of their greatest hits.
That's what the washing machine guy. That's his technique. More on him later.
Oh, he's amazing. He's my style icon.
Oh, yeah, John. There is
different coloured hands. I've often got different coloured hands because I've been painting. And his mad hair and beard. I did recognise him from about.
I'm sure he's the boss in like Terry and June or something like that.
Yeah,
Surf.
But before we get onto him, we are then introduced to. Along with Jane Asher, the protagonist of the piece, who it takes you ages for them to tell you what his actual name is. And it's Peter, isn't it? And I've just written down, cad. He's a cad, right? And what I felt was he came across as a character that could have been played by either of the guys from Inside Number 9.
Yeah, it's Rhys Shearsmith in a wig. It's
totally. Hang on.
But Steve Pemberton could have done it as well. And he kind of spends the entire film, and this is the most remarkable thing about it, Rhys Shearsmith.
For the benefit of the tape, I'm pointing to Rhys Shearsmith.
Doing like one of his voices like this.
That's right. Yes. He spends his entire time in this state. He's kind of constantly in a state of emotional crisis. Don't you know what we're doing here?
Even when he's happy. He's
Team Happy! God, just get on with it.
But he seems
Science!
to be incredibly attractive to women, as we were.
Yes.
For someone who is about 2 feet tall, he's shorter than everyone else in the entire cast.
He makes up with volume. Like yourself, John.
Yes. So this opening kind of sequence, I've written down perception of danger, gearbox, and ambitious setup. It's a really weird opening. I know that it's coming across in these podcasts now that I'm very interested in the way that these kind of sequences are set up. This is an outside broadcast video, but it appears to be vision mixed on location, and there seems to be multiple cameras set up. So there's a big wide shot of all this action happening outside this big mansion. There's obviously a close-up on Jane Asher, who can't drive. There's different things happening with different people coming in and out. So it's really quite ambitious.
If they were filming this as live, they wouldn't have cut around this.
Yeah, I think this was all done as live. So I looked up, the director, Peter Sasdy, was a proper director, darling. So he did Taste the Blood of Dracula. He did I think he did Hands of the Ripper as well, which is another Hammer film. And he obviously knew what he was doing. And I think it's easy now to laugh at this start because it's an Austin Maxi and it's a woman who can't drive. And it's, it's 2 silly trucks that just look like antiques now. But it's actually a really ambitious way of introducing these characters, because you kind of dropped straight into what at first is a really confusing kind of... You've got Ian Cuthbertson come in, who's very tall. I looked up his age at this point. He was 42 when this was shot. So he's basically our age. He looks like 60.
Younger than us.
I'm still just 42. I don't know how old Michael Thingy was.
Bryant.
Michael Bryant. I don't know how old he was. I think he was a little bit older. Jane Asher obviously was younger, but particularly Ian Cuthbertson looks ancient in this.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really interesting way to drop us into the action. And then for me, what's interesting is that there's about 10 different classic cars that just come on, like Miss World contestants. So there's a Humber Estate, there's a Pagoda Merc, I think there's a Hillman Avenger or something as well. So it's a nice... It works as a bit of social history now, as well as just an intro.
It's like getting into a warm bath for you, John, wasn't it?
Straight away, you start with some radiophonic workshop. You recognise the characters like they're old friends. There's a load of old cars. And then you go straight into a nice studio set, which I think was
but before that, though.
Before
that. To be honest, my notes are very sparse for this because I enjoyed watching it so much. I've just written, names.
Yeah. Well, before that, then the rest of the crazy gang turn up. But for me, which was this bit was one of the most disturbing parts of it, where they pull out the guy dressed as the Martian.
Oh yeah,
out of the back of the car.
I totally forgotten that part. Why is that?
Right. What I've written on my notes is oi dickheads. Right? Basically, it seems to be that, as we all know, if you say, okay, what groups are best known for their incessant laddish banter, I'd say a load of blokes on an 1830 holiday in Magaluf, and a load of rugby players. In third place, research scientists. They're absolutely, like the kind of the academic veneer of research science. They all just turn up and they're all just... Way!
Often I'm seeing things on these things I want to dress up as. I want to dress up as the Ryan Electric's Martian, and I want to be transported somewhere in the back of a car and then sort of dragged out. Yeah.
Is it the mascot for a very bad football team?
No,
it's quite disturbing. If you watch that out of context, the bit where they drag him to his knees in front of Michael Bryant, it looks like some really disgusting sex act is about to be taking place in that car park.
James, do Aston Villa have a mascot?
Yes, they do. They're a lion. He's a lion because of the badge.
And what's his name?
Now. Oh, I'll have to check for you, mate.
Oh, James, come on.
James was a mascot for Aston Villa.
I was the actual mascot, not as in the mascot man in a suit. I'm doing the impression.
No, the child in the kit.
As a little kid, he walked on with whoever it was. Who walked you on?
Steve Sims, captain at the time.
Steve Sims. I don't know.
Right, so it was one of our forays down into what is now the Championship, and was like Division 2 at the time, and we were coming back and that's when Graham Taylor was manager.
Yes. Do I not like orange?
Well, yeah, but that's how he got the England job, because he was so good with us. He got us back up at the storming season, and then he got us to run us up the following year. But anyway, cut all that out.
What a
Ross.
lovely man.
He was a lovely guy.
Keep it in. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Graham.
We then get the kind of the explanation, which for me was just like, this is so mad, and we'll get on to like how the great idea of the stone tape and how that's kind of permeated into culture now. But you do have to stop and go, now wait a minute. Now, it's, once again, as mentioned at the top of this podcast, it's a research lab in an old Victorian home.
Yes.
And then he says, right, guys, you know what you're going to be working on? You know what you're going to be... in his state of permanent frenzy and anger. He says... There's all that. Everything he says, they all kind of go...
The inflatable sex dolls at this point are a bit off-putting, aren't they?
Pretty much. But he says, you know what we're after, lads? We want Wagner's ring cycle on a ball bearing. Which I've written down, and I put, the sweet, naive 70s.
Right, let's butter their paws. Lift, soon to operate, I hope. My office is up there.
And very palatial.
Of course, a YB boss. Reception desk with Sergeant Patterson. Sergeant, get to know these faces.
I know some already, sir.
From here on, we're secret. So no chums in, no parties in the canteen, which, by the way, is still there and extremely decent.
And working.
Lou's that way, also working. Right, follow me.
Follow me.
This is lab 1. Soon there'll be 2 others like it to spread into. And if that's not enough, there are 500 acres outside. Thinking.
Who else is coming here?
Nobody, just us.
But it's enormous.
We'll get bigger. I'll expand the team with people I choose, hand-picked, the best. Same as you're the best.
Aye, flattery, Pete.
Get some other places.
Yeah.
This lot. Absolutely fantastic.
Good to meet you.
What about the others, the washing machine crowd?
Here.
Forget it.
What, that lot here?
No! Can't you get it through your head? You're special. Incredible as that may seem, you are. I'll spell it out for you. This place is ours. It is all for us. Because we are on the big one. Do you want a pep talk? Is that what you want?
About the Japs.
No, he's a bit simple. He's brilliant, but simple.
Cliff, it is always about the Japs. In 10 years' time, they're going to have us by whatever part of our anatomy they pick. There will be no electronics industry anywhere in the world but theirs, unless...
I think we've got a good chance.
We've only got one chance. We've got to play a card so high they can't top it.
Ah, so!
A completely new recording medium.
Have here in honourable pocket.
Oh, shut up, Stuart.
Oh, what about tape?
Tape's finished.
Well, it's still in.
No, its day is done.
Magnetic tape is compact, responsive. All the sales shut-up says it is. Also, delicate and prone to lose its memory.
Like Clifford here.
As you so rightly say. Now, it's time, gentlemen, for a breakthrough. Just record me, say, the whole of Wagner's ring cycle inside a ball bearing, with instant playback, of course.
Can you give it till lunchtime?
And you can name your own royalties.
Oh, it is royalties, then.
Yep, forget about bonuses. You'll be right in there. Got his word on it.
Himself?
Yesterday. Just put the boots in old Nippon, is how he delicately phrased it. So if you want to be millionaires, it's a crash program. Find the medium, everything else follows.
Hardware?
We'll take the lot. Computers, TV, home recordings, satellites, they all follow. Then Ryan Electrics becomes Ryan International, becomes Ryan Interspatial. It's up to you.
Hats off to Nigel Kneale for saying, look, they were trying to make music smaller, looking for a new kind of digital way, but they didn't even have the vocabulary to say digitized music at that point. But still, that's what they're supposed to be working on. But then what their lab set up is just so, like, there's no
massive
sound equipment.
And stuff. It's like our college.
Yeah. The lab setup is basically UNIT from Doctor Who.
Exactly.
It's like when you watch the John
With red
Pertwee. Yeah, when you watch the John Pertwee, not his first season, his second season onwards, you just watch and you think, why are UNIT, the United Nations Intelligence Task Force, seemingly based in a Victorian school? It doesn't make any sense at all. Why does the doctor's lab look like a dungeon? It's just nonsensical. And it's obvious what he's trying to do, because that is the premise of the whole thing, is that's why they're there, isn't
Apparently,
it?
this was based on when Nigel Kneale was brought to the BBC to work on scripts for them. He went to an old Victorian house where all the BBC sort of boffins.
This is what I read.
Were sort of based, and he liked. They
were all the same clowns as in this.
Exactly. Yeah, it was that type of men cocking around atmosphere.
Yes.
He wanted to put across.
Wow.
But also, I was just thinking when James was talking about him trying to set up the exposition, I think he probably thought this exposition is quite boring. What can I? So I'm going to make it so one of them's dressed up as an alien,
and it's just non-stop jocularity going on in the background.
The only thing I can think with the Martian is that it's some kind of in-joke within the world.
Electronics team.
No. Within the super universe of Nigel Kneale himself. What do we call the Marvel expanded? Is it Marvel expanded universe?
Yes.
Please?
No, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Oh, so within the Nigel Kneale cinematic universe, maybe it's an in-joke to the Martians in all of his.
Yeah, but they were like ants, though, weren't they?
They were. I mean, and I don't think Nigel Kneale doesn't ever seem to come across as very much of an in-joke kind of guy. So I do question that part and just think there's no mention of aliens at all. There's no mention of. But
maybe it's just those wrong-footing people.
Martians, or maybe, yeah. It's like a MacGuffin to put you off right at the start, but then I did totally forget it within 10 minutes until you reminded me it happened.
Such strange visuals for me. Anyway, but we have covered that very, 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 very small part of the thing for 20 minutes now on the podcast. So let's move on.
So having established that that's what they're doing, we then learn very, very quickly that there is, as we said in the outset, a spooky kind of hidden room that no one likes to work in. Amazingly enough, this had, and you're told that the building had been requisitioned during World War II by the American Army. Fine. Yeah. But then it says, US Army storeroom on the doors. I'm like, sure. Yeah, me too. I thought, surely you don't need to put US Army on there.
If you're the US Army,
you don't
surely
put
you know
US
you're in the
Army
US Army. Where's our storeroom gone again? Oh, it's the one that says US Army on the door. Oh, yeah. I thought I was going to go into the British Army storeroom, and I didn't want to do that. Amazing.
When they go in there, once again...
He's very cross. Michael Bryant is very
once
cross.
Again, Peter, oh God, what's going on? Why hasn't this been built? Frenzy! Right? And then
it's
I
the
put
computer
down...
storage, isn't it?
Yes.
And then I then put...
Which is crazy that you have to have a massive room for your computer tape.
More on that. There's a great line later on in regards to that.
That's a computer.
I put that it goes a bit Grand Designs at this point because he basically just starts smashing up old walls, doesn't he? Come on, get on with it! And starts smashing up walls, thus revealing a staircase which seemingly goes to nowhere.
I thought that piece was absolutely bizarre.
It was mental. Once again, I was like, this is so mad.
You're introduced to beautiful doll-like Jane Asher in a lovely suit, comes in. She looks absolutely amazing. I can't tell if she's got a wig on or not. Her hair looks very kind of bouffant and coiffed.
I'll add that to the wig spreadsheet for all our episodes.
Well, Michael Bryant, he is the king toque wearer in this. Like, his toque is absurd in this, and you see it in many different states of dishevelment. But I just thought this bit where they go into this room, it's quite a cool set. Again, Peter Sasdy kind of excelled himself here.
Nice high window.
Yeah, there's some really nice kind of crane shots looking down.
And for someone who's had to put fake cobwebs on lots of different places, there was a very good fake cobweb hanging off of a light bulb. Yeah.
So you've got this good kind of, it's a bit like the light bulb in Psycho, actually, when you finally go into the basement and you see the mother in the basement, there's this, she's partially obscured by this light bulb in the one shot, and it reminded me of that. But anyway, we've got Michael Bryant going in and then just kicking the shit out of a wall for no reason. So he's in like this absurd, like 70s, like safari suit kind of get-up. With like a little suede jacket on. He looks like he's come in from King's Road, and then he just kicks the shit out of the wall for no reason.
We just fed up with these country builders.
Yeah, country bumpkins can't come in and what are they meant to do to this room anyway? It looks like
kick the wall down.
It looks like some part of an abbey or something. It's obviously much older than the rest of the house is meant to be. I've written main guy is annoying and shouty. And then how?
I think that's the review of our podcast, John.
So how long do we have then before?
I think they hear the ghost
comes in. It's straight away. Isn't
they do.
It?
Yeah. And
so
Jane Asher
sees the running.
Yeah.
That's quite good. Oh, Ross.
That was good. But like a big crow.
If we move fast, get everything concreted over, get the machines moved in. Where are the men now?
Working on the back.
Come on. Don't worry, love. You'll get your storage room. Ollie!
I can't stay here. Take me away, Peter.
Jill, easy.
So that bit is actually quite scary. I listened to it with headphones on, and the scream when it comes into your headphones is really horrible. But then I did find it annoying that straight away we go straight into Jane Asher just being like a hysterical woman.
Yeah.
And I was expecting someone to
slap
her in the face. Put yourself together, woman. Do you know what I'm here to do? We're building the future.
We've got to fight the Japs.
Yeah. And so much stuff now. So much culturally insensitive comments about Japanese people.
Inane stupidity, isn't it, really?
Oh, God, it's dreadful. But then, following that, while she's kind of, I've had a funny turn, I've seen a ghost, I've just put overwhelming amounts of beige in the next scene. There's so much beige.
A lot of beige.
Costumes,
the
room itself, it's just the 70s were just beige.
And then at one point, he's kind of done out a pad for himself in
love
the
that
place, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that inspired me to have this weird dream about turning a bowling alley into like a 70s flat. I just thought it was just so opulent, his sort of flat stroke office.
But it seemed totally divorced from the building that he was in.
Yes.
And he's like, I've done all this up, and I've put some shelves in. And it's like, that's all you've done. You put some shelves up.
Yeah.
Do you like the shelves?
But imagine, this guy, again, like James was saying, they are someone who's there to develop a new recording format. It's part of this. I want to have this massive penthouse flat built for myself with art.
Even though, did they suggest that the rest of the research team was staying there?
Yes. Well, I don't know. I might be getting confused because I've also listened to the recent audio one, and they've got like bunks and stuff in there as well.
Well, Ian Cuthbertson just seems to live in a porter cabin outside.
Well, like something out of Tenko.
Lots of sweaty women hanging around.
Exactly. Lots of the sets on this, particularly that, you feel like this is going way overboard for something which is not probably going to be a permanent fixture, and also it looks like it's been established for quite a long time. Like his little shed where he's like the site of, like, you wouldn't have a full-time role on this place, and also they got this soldier security guard.
Well, he's my favourite part of it because he's excellent, and he also plays Sam Seeley, who is the poacher in Spearhead from Space, which is John Pertwee's first story.
The only Doctor Who we filmed entirely on
16mm.
Yeah, you've got to say that every time you say Spearhead from Space.
Spearhead from Space, bingo.
Moving on from that, Jane Asher is trying to recover, and we then cut to the pair of them having a 70s pub lunch
Love it.
Which was a magnificent scene. Number one,
My
just a
favourite
representation of a 70s pub.
£1.80 for 2 pints and 2 ploughmans.
Cheers. I believe it's been made very nice.
Do you know it?
Well, I used to, sort of.
You went there?
Not actually in. It was during the war when the Yanks were there. I was a good time girl.
Hooray for you.
Yes. Well, why not? They was nice boys. And the nylons.
Did they talk about it? About the house?
It was all generals and people. Some in quarters. Eisenhower was there once.
No, I mean what it was like inside.
No. Very posh, I expect. Oh, there was one boy. He was a proper caution, he was. He said, oh, now let me think. Oh, dear. He had all them funny words, you see. He was a coloured boy. Oh, I know. Guppy. He said there were guppies in the store where he worked.
Gup is a fish. Tropical.
Oh, dear. Dappies?
He must have meant rats.
Oh, you don't know, Alan.
Taskerland's full of rats. We used to play up there when I was a kid.
Oh, yes. You and that jacket.
Yes, old Jackie.
They've got 4 people working behind the bar in a pub that you can literally get 6 people in.
Yeah, but a set which you see for about 3 minutes. A lot of work put into that.
Yeah, this is what I thought, is that this whole production looks... it's ridiculous to say it now because it doesn't compared to something like The Crown or whatever. But it looks really lavish because there's scenes in it where the sets are in it for one scene.
Yeah, like the vicar's house.
Yes.
Yeah.
The manse.
There's loads of work put on that for no reason.
These days, it would be just... You'd think that they'd be like, oh, can we just do this scene like... even outside.
Yeah.
Even outside. Or just, someone visits and they mention it in a corridor or something. But they have a whole scene in a pub. The pub looks amazing. I want to go to that pub now and spend time with those yokels.
Because we're in lockdown, I've been really, really craving going to a pub today.
What would you have to eat and drink if you went to a pub, Cleves?
Ploughman's or a cider.
Oh. Not like...
cheesy chips.
So they're in the pub. The woman behind the bar has got a very frilly pink top on, hasn't she? And then she buggers off. And then another woman comes over and is like, oh, I was a good time girl with the US Army in the war. And it's like, hang on, you look like you're about 10 in the war. She only looks about 45.
I've been trying to think of a better way to put this, but I don't think there is a more delicate way to put it, quite frankly. But what I've just put is barmaid outs herself as a slag. I'm sorry, but it's true.
I mean, that's a less genteel way of putting it, but yeah.
Well, all the local people are shown as being mentally deficient in some way.
But that was, bearing in mind, one of the things that we're kind of interested in is like folk horror and that whole thing. But that was, for me, one of the scenes where it kind of touched on folk horror. That whole thing of going to a pub, out of the way, and things aren't quite right.
Mm.
Yes.
And that there's a legend. There is a local legend involved with this place.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about that house.
Some slow lad comes out and he's looking a bit shifty about...
And more on him later.
Well, it's like any Dracula or kind of Frankenstein trope, isn't it? Where the traveller goes to the tavern and says, "Oh, I'm local to the area. Yeah, I'm coming to research the castle. Oh, you don't want to go up to the castle, sir?"
Oh, exactly.
It's that kind of thing. I've written that the locals are a bit flaming torches because they're the kind of locals that just go and burn something.
But apparently, when she mentioned that she used to go with one of the black soldiers, she was trying to remember a word he said was like guppy or something.
Oh yeah,
like
guppy.
And they never come back to it.
No, but I've looked it up, and apparently that it's a word. It sounds like another word, which I think that in sort of like black culture meant like evil spirit or something like that.
Okay.
But then they just leave that. He leaves that hanging. And also, I've just put, because it's 1973, she describes him as a coloured man.
And
I've just written cancelled.
Yeah,
she'd be cancelled now. For
it's
that.
the problematic,
very problematic
neon light.
Barmaid.
The locals remind me, and a lot of the locals in Quatermass 2, the film version where there is an actual Quatermass, I think it's Quatermass, leads the villagers from the new town, in inverted commas, to the chemical works where the aliens are being grown in the big vats.
Okay, I haven't seen any of this. It sounds great.
Oh, it's brilliant. We should review Quatermass 2. But it's obvious that that's what he's trying to do, is that he's trying to echo one of the James Whale Frankensteins, either Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein, where the windmill is burnt down.
It's the second one, I think.
Yeah, where the creature is inside, which is imaginative and different. Obviously now it's really commonplace, but I think at that point...
It's like the slaughtered lamb, isn't it?
And which is probably that was about 10 years after this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like, so at that point, that is probably quite a new idea to put a twist on something.
Yeah.
A film that at that point was only 40 years old. So Frankenstein then was as old as American Werewolf in London is to us now.
I mentioned that we was doing Stone Tape on our Twitter, which is...
Shout out to Twitter.
What's our Twitter handle? General Which One on Twitter.
General Which One, yeah.
Numeral 1. And this has been one of the biggest responses we had off of all the people. It's got a lot so far. People love this. One of the guys on there gave us a link to a blog article he wrote about this, and I haven't got it to hand at the moment, but I will put it in the show notes.
In the show notes.
But he mentions that this was the first time, for him at least, that a ghost story was put out which wasn't set in like olden times in an old castle.
A contemporary setting.
And he said that was what really made this stand out. And I think you're right, even though we got some of these tropes about going to the tavern, it's like a modern one with rock music in the background.
Plowman's lunches.
Plowman's lunches and all that kind of stuff. And I think
that's a very good point.
And I think it's something which it's hard for us to be in that point of view, because the Christmas ghost stories would have been like an M.R. James ghost story or something from the past, and this is like bang up to date. You know, this is electronics and all that kind of stuff, and it was a big thing.
Well, I read on Wikipedia, of course, that this was meant as a part of the Strand Dead of Night, which I've only just bought the DVD of. I think there's only 3 episodes remaining. One of them is particularly brilliant, and it's something we should potentially review, so I won't give too much away about it. But those are all modern settings, and one of them, like I say, is really, really good. And but I didn't know that this was meant as part of that strand.
Having been told that there's obviously something strange about the house and all the rest of it.
Rats in the walls.
Possibly. That,
there's something strange and it don't look good.
They go and decide to go and talk to the local vicar, who is the most traditional English country vicar. Absolutely on the money.
Derek Nimmo.
Yes, he's cut from the same cloth. Literally. But when I've written down that he then kind of gives and says, "Oh yes," gives them more information about the house. But he then also says exorcism in the weirdest way. Exorcism. He says exorcism, which I've written down. I was like, "Yeah, all right, mate. Okay, fine." And he says, "Yes, there was an exorcism that kind of took place at the house." So extra kind of drama. We then cut back to Peter's kind of shag pad within the house, and he's on the phone to his wife, his long-suffering wife, who again, like Mr. Ryan, you never see. But the best bit is that we find out he's talking about their daughter, and that their horse is called Chuffy. And I just thought that was the best thing ever. Oh, how's Chuffy? How's Chuffy?
Is this when he says, "What did the vet say?" And then you don't hear what the vet says, and then he just goes, He laughs for about 20 minutes.
You know that he said he's going to be put down.
Down, Glue Factory.
Is that when Jane Asher sort of sneaks away out of the room?
Yes.
At that point,
Yes. Yeah.
Because you never see them have a relationship, but it is implied.
It's heavily implied. He kisses her a couple of times.
Well, there's in the audio version, so there is a recent up-to-date
better version?
Audio version. No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's better, but it's different. The BBC put it out, and they were experimenting with 3D sound, and it does work quite well if you listen to it with headphones and stuff. And some of the sound effects are really good on there. But in that story, she has recently either had a miscarriage or an abortion from a baby with that chap, and
the caddish behaviour.
Exactly. And it's more kind of like the guilt of that as well. It's playing a lot on her, and that sort of there's a struggle in the relationship between the two of them over that. And he's saying, you know, I want you to put that behind you because I need you for this project. And they are looking to do mining with sonic beams rather than do a recording thing like that, which is quite nice. But it's very good, and I recommend it. But anyway,
so after Jane Asher then kind of encounters the ghost again, they then decide. I need reminding here. Either they then all hear it.
Different people. Some people
different people,
and then
see,
that's a good thing, isn't it?
All hear, some see, and one guy has no interaction with it at all. Which is
Stuart.
Which is a theme that Nigel Kneale revisits quite often. Quatermass and the Pit, the film version, and I'm sure the TV version. The people that are somehow descended from the apes that are... This is going to sound like bollocks now. So there are humans that are genetically engineered by the Martians, and there are those that aren't, and it's all to do with gene pools and keeping the race pure and stuff like this. And so there's always this thing. He seems obsessed with this kind of part of the story where there's always some people don't experience what the others are experiencing, and it's this kind of othering thing that goes on.
That was one of my favourite things about it. I really loved that he had some guy going, well, I'm not hearing anything.
I can't hear anything. I think you're all mad.
That's right. Yeah. I thought, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's to do with, and again, and this is a similar thing with Quatermass and the Pit, it's to do with like crowd hysteria and group hysteria, isn't it? Where all these people see the same thing, and it's absolute bollocks, like the troops that all saw the Angels of Mong in the First World War. Yeah. People become convinced that they've seen something or heard something that they didn't necessarily.
Whereas every time Jill she's seeing more and more. So this time she sees the woman screaming on the... She
sees her face, doesn't she? Yeah. She specifically says about seeing her face.
But there's a really great bit where they go, play that take back, and they play the take back.
Yeah.
And none of the ghostly sounds are on the tape, but you just hear everyone's reaction to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
again,
good.
Well, I was thinking this was probably done live. They probably recorded that live and actually played it back live. Or I don't know.
That's a very good point, Cleves. Yeah. Oh yeah, they will have done. They will. I mean, there might have been an edit, but they will have had to record the sound of the take, because otherwise it would just sound wrong. So
and we've got to point out, and it's obvious, but for some people out there, everything's done analog here. So we're talking big reel-to-reel tape machines, big microphone, all that kind of stuff, which I love.
A massive space trumpet.
Yeah.
That is the best bit. That was I put, for later on, I said, this whole thing just reminds me of a prog rock gig. Yeah. There's too many people on stage. There's a lot of very expensive looking or big electrical equipment. And there's someone walking around with like a big comedy oversized trumpet. I was like,
I did expect Peter Gabriel to come in at one point dressed as a daisy.
But yes, so having heard all this, right, he then goes, right, kind of Peter goes, right, abandon the research project. We're now going to do this. And I thought, would Mr. Ryan be okay with this?
There's a ghost in
here. We're going to do it. Come on.
But this is all within the narrative of the thing as well. This is all like within a day of them arriving there, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no feel of time.
Well, no, I felt it's longer than that, because when you first see him in Peter's flat, it's all boxed up. And when you see it later on, he's moved in. So I had a feeling that time had passed.
Yeah, okay.
But if nothing else, a week, if nothing else.
But his toupee hadn't moved at that point.
But basically, they come to the conclusion that they reckon that the room itself has recorded some event, which is being played back.
Yeah.
And they if I'm jumping ahead too far here, let me know. But
you are.
But they are saying that it's the human beings are part of that. That's why they stopped recording on the tape. They need the human there in order to play back what's coming out of the stones.
Well, they're like the playhead on a tape machine, aren't they? They are the live part of the
So they think
interaction.
If we can work out how this works, we could potentially have this would be the new recording medium, and then there's a bit where they're celebrating. He's running around and like twicking people's ears and saying,
"Hold on, yeah, because I was going to say that."
Playing this, and then he tweaks Jane Ash's boobs and says, "Porn channel 1 and porn channel 2."
Porn channel 2,
which is
again very inappropriate now.
It's inappropriate then, James. I think.
I know. But
I mean, that whole thing. One of two women, and the barmaid as well. But two women at the facility.
Yeah.
Anyway,
one's in bed with him, and the other he's had an affair with. All we found out so far from this podcast is that the 70s was a time of rampant paedophilia and just the signing off of perversion at the highest level.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, we'll put this on Christmas Day.
QAnon need to investigate. The set 1970s, not
shooting up Peterson places and.
So in order to kind of bring the ghost about, they then they do so. Well, the amazing line, and Ross was talking about the thing about the fact that the storeroom was going to be for the computer anyway. He says, "Book time on the central computer."
Yeah.
Like,
where is it though? It's like in. Does he say it's in Houston?
Somewhere else?
It's somewhere else or Houston or something like that.
But their computers, they don't have screens on their computers. Everything's typed into like a typewriter, and then it comes up on paper. And it's so fucking loud. Like, and
all it says is 4-4, Queen of the South 1, QPR 3. It's basically just the football results.
Having to spell out 7. SEVE.
I know that the sound was meant to be getting more and more overwhelming. Yes, if you're listening to this on headphones next to your sleeping wife, as I was, it's just like, this is so loud.
It was very loud.
But then, then they try and bring the ghost back by like having the big space trumpet.
And they bring in from one of the multitudes of people that work in the pub. They bring like the guy who played there as a kid, right? And basically, once again, Peter just bullies him. And I put, was the main way of extracting information in the 1970s just out and out bullying?
Yeah, this is still. It is.
Yeah. I know Sapphire and Steel was early 80s, but still, I thought it's that whole kind of the Sweeney vibe, isn't it? It's just like, you want to get some information out of someone, just rough them up.
Yeah.
It's violently antagonistic.
Yes.
The guy is just doing them a favour.
No, he's
going to go. He's going up to the castle or whatever the hell it is, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to go and help out those nice technology people that have moved into the castle."
Then a 4'10" man comes up to him,
and he's just shouting in his face, "Do it, tell me."
James, do the line.
Okay, and then I had to write it down because it made me. I hate the phrase "laugh out loud," but I truly did laugh out loud when I watched it. So he starts kind of saying, "Come on, tell us more," to this poor guy. And he's like, "No, I don't want to do it." And he went, "Oh, it was just rats. It was just rats." And he went,
"Come on, it wasn't just rats. You're a country lad. You know what rats sound like."
Come on, you're a country lad. You know what rats sound like.
That he was in Lair, I imagine. It's all part of.
They are
all part of the Herbert Nigel Kneale joint universe.
There are themes of rodents, which we've along with the 70s were full of pedos.
But isn't there then a point where someone's like happens and he's like gripping his ears and there's lots of running along corridors and just tripping over nothing.
He freaks out. He basically he basically goes into a K-hole, we'd say.
You remember this room? Oh, I was just a kid. You did come in here?
Well, I suppose so.
You're not sure?
Well, I did then.
How often?
We knew we weren't rightly
How many times?
I don't know.
In a year, say?
10 times, a dozen.
You said between 1952 and 1955. Maybe a total of 30 visits? Did you get that, Stu?
I got it.
And you heard rats?
Sometimes.
Only sometimes?
Nearly every time if we waited.
Nearly every time.
We made these dares out of it, see? Old rats are dirty customers, they'll go for you. We used to fool about all over the house, smash it up a bit,
You're
you know.
a country lad, you know the sound rats make.
I reckon we must have bust all the windows. Real bad we were. We used to see who could find a pane of glass, still whole, and smash. Cost you a lot to put it right, did it? Look, I better go now. There'll be trouble if I don't get back. That old cow down there, I reckon I'll just get along.
It's there. Can't you hear it?
He falls over, he cuts his face, cuts his hand, and then Jane
drags his bloody hand all over the wall.
And then I've written down, get him water, get him whiskey, anything!
Whiskey was always a hand in the 70s, wasn't it?
Like, he treats the guy like in the maddest way. This guy's a total stranger.
Doesn't the vicar turn up at that point? He's like, fuck off!
I haven't got time for this now. We've just made a
Poor man.
That's later. You're getting ahead of yourself. What I wanted to point out at this point is that the guy playing Eddie, all the way through, I was like, God, I really recognise him.
Yeah,
he's basically one of the original lineup of Last of the Summer Wine.
Right,
really,
and he's also one of the policemen in Frenzy, which was made the same year. So Hitchcock's Frenzy, which is
Frenzy.
Just a very bizarre. What a weird year he had. He did a Hitchcock film and he did this. But yeah, he's one of the original three with Compo and is it Clegg?
Yeah.
Is that Peter Sallis?
Yeah.
So he's the one that was in it before
Foggy
and then
Seymour.
Seymour.
We then get one of the dullest scenes I think I've ever seen, which is, I know, John, you said he was your favourite, but we're then told Ryan Electronics are also working on like a super high-tech washing machine.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that they want to use the haunted house
Yeah.
as the development area for the washing machine too.
And why not?
And so the man who's behind it all turns up. John's mentioned him briefly before.
Crawshaw.
Crawshaw, that's him. And then Crawshaw and Peter then share the dullest exchange ever, which serves really no purpose. It was done in about 30 seconds.
It was just a power play between two alpha males.
It's very odd, and it's to do with the fact that Peter thinks that Mr. Ryanair doesn't really want the mad professor guy, Crawshaw, to finish the development of his electronic
fully automatic
washing machine, because he's seen the cost breakdown. And it's just not that it's going to be £900 per washing machine, and it's
There's no way we're going to be able to compete with the Japs.
But they keep making up this whole thing that he's dyeing his hands different colours. But when he's pounding his fist on the worktop, like all the dust comes off, which is just putting like powder on his hands.
I would like to see it remade for TV with like modern production values, because the whole thing is brilliant.
I want to see it as an amateur dramatic play.
I'll do it. Well, I'm ready.
Well, you've just watched that for an hour and a half, please. It was made in 1972 by the BBC.
We'll get onto our review, of course, at the end, but I totally agree with John. The concepts and the idea were brilliant, but I thought, oh God, the superficiality and just the plot dynamics were awful.
So much
just
shouting.
all over the show and unnecessary.
How flimsy a lot of the set is at the end when Jane Asher's climbing up.
Oh, I love that bit. Oh, we're gonna get to that later. Yeah,
Okay.
So after the doll scene, we then get onto the bit that Ross mentioned before, which I've just put. Yeah, ghosts, let's go mental. Because they just figure out that in some way, because that you can encode information into stone, maybe stone will be the recording device of the future. And he then just kind of, Peter just whips them up into a frenzy about
a massive party.
Yes, come on! This is it! We've
done it. Yes! We haven't worked out how to do it.
This is it, the big one. The big one.
And he's like, I'm waiting for the penny to drop here. Come on, you idiots! Come on, can't you see?
And it's like, well, no, you can't. And I've put down, how on earth do you monetize this?
Yeah.
And he just says...
In the audio version, they're saying, someone's going to him, you can't put your records on a slab. And he goes, what are you going to do? Turn the slab over when you... And you can't get all that information onto this one big bit of rock. And he's going, you've got to stop thinking now. You've got to think of the future. Someone showed you a vinyl record and said, we're going to put this on that. You wouldn't have believed it.
Man, no. It
is a good scene, though.
Kind of shoddy. Yeah.
I'm going to talk about a book in a minute, which is the process of the BBC making things in the 70s and 80s. A lot of this, I can imagine them just like rehearsing this in some rehearsal room somewhere, and they're going, and the whole idea of party scene. Okay, what are we going to do in order to get everyone like wolf whistling and shouting and like teasing, and all the actors getting really excited about all the little bits of business they could do in these little scenes and stuff. And there's a bit when he's on the phone trying to talk to himself, Mr. Ryanair, and like they're all shouting. And
Michael O'Leary. I've looked up online, and that's the guy who owns Ryanair.
I mean, if I'm right, this could be it. The big one.
A new recording medium?
The boot in the guts of old Nippon. It's true, baby. You found it. It's fantastic. Well done. Here's to the big one. Bless you, Jill. It's all yours. Molly, we're winning the head of an idea. It could be the big one. Oh, my God. The more I kick it around, the direct injection into the human's brain of both sound and vision. No intervening apparatus at all.
I read about some research.
The Japs, of course. The blind alley. They got nowhere. It's going to be ours, all ours. Television without the TV set, no box, not even a visor in front of the eyes.
This is sort of clip.
Yeah, costume jewellery, the 13-channel earring.
Underworld Nippon have made great defeat.
Go now to cut on your big belly.
Barry, you can't say belly.
I can say what I like.
When it goes wrong, the repairman will have to operate on your head.
Hey, don't mention that. Not in the sales brochure. Let's keep it positive. Coronation Street, double your money. Come dancing, War and Peace. Porn Channel 1, Porn Channel 2. That's all right. Channel 10, Home Doctor, a big little laugh in. Do it yourself. Urban Gorillas. Hey,
it's really bad, but also 70s-tastic and great at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
It's
It's immensely enjoyable.
Yeah, but shit. Again, like this podcast.
It's not shit. It's really charming and enjoyable, and in a way that television isn't necessarily charming and enjoyable these days, I don't think. I watch a lot of dramas these days, and they're so fucking dry and boring, and just they're really well made, but they're just boring.
But it's interesting what people watch as reality, and that changes over time, because I doubt people were looking at it going, this is fake then.
Yeah.
And when you look at how like theatre was in the past, this is how a story...
Suspension of disbelief.
And how a story is told. And the conventions of drama changes over time. And it's amazing that we can see that in our lifetime.
All you had before that was plays that were written down, didn't you? And that, we're lucky that we've had for about 100 years, which isn't very long in the history of humanity, film and recorded sound, which allows us to review stuff like this
and see the conventions of depiction reality changes.
Yeah, very much. And then we have a scene where the sounds send them all mad.
Yes, yeah, when he's really pushing them to go beyond what.
Bring them coffee. Bring coffee. Get the massive trumpet out.
People grabbing their heads and screaming.
Screaming.
That's when it got very prog rock from me. That was the prog rock sequence. And then we learned they burnt away the original ghost of the Victorian parlour girl. She's gone, but then Jane Asher goes, "Oh no, but don't you realise that's just the surface level? You know, there's in the same way that there's sedimentary layers of a rock, there's sedimentary layers here. There's older things, and you begin to realise that's what scared the girl in the 1800s to death." And that's what drove the former owner of the mansion, who died a recluse when he was a boy, drove him to despair, was the fact that there is an older, more malevolent power at work.
Two things happens here. He pushes it so far that he wipes the tape. Bryant manages to wipe off the haunting which they all got there.
Is it Eloise or something like that? Is that her name? I can't remember.
But the vicar then talks about a
exorcism.
And he talks about the exorcism, but he mentions an older exorcism. There was another exorcism in the past. So these events have been repeating over time.
Yeah.
And that's where they get the idea that maybe there is
an older creature.
More malevolent force. Yeah.
At this point, I was reminded again of Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans. Where
it's a touchstone for this show.
It is.
One day we'll have him on.
He often mentions the stone tape theory within Ghost Adventures itself. He often uses a temperature sensor, which is used within this program. And in an episode where they go to Cleaver, you would absolutely love this episode. It's the most insane episode ever, where they go and investigate. I think it's a ranch, which is called Stardust Ranch.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I saw you tweeting someone about this the other day.
I was tweeting David Llewellyn about it. It's an episode where they go and investigate this ranch, and you don't know whether they're investigating ghosts or aliens, and I don't think they know either. No. But there is a sequence where the guy that lives there claims to have beheaded 3 aliens with a samurai sword. And the reason why I bring this episode up is that at the end of this episode, they use this subsonic sound stuff to try and bring out the ghosts within this guy's house and the aliens that have been sexually abusing his wife while she levitates. The effect of the subsonic sound makes Zach Bagans go a bit weird, and he threatens one of his fellow ghost investigators with the same samurai sword that was used to behead the 3 greys. It's an absolutely towering hour.
Oh, I've got to see this.
It's not an hour; it's 40 minutes. I will try and find a link and we'll put it on the show notes, and I'll try and find a link to it. But this reminder, I was thinking, Zach Bagans must have watched the Stone Tape, which is a really weird thought process.
I think it's the case that the Stone Tape has now become part of
ubiquitous.
Oh yeah. The Stone Tape theory is now quite a well-known theory, isn't it?
A piece of drama is now people saying, "Oh yeah, well that's what ghosts are."
It becomes fact.
It becomes fact. Yeah, it becomes a theory, which it's just something some chap made up, and now this is what ghosts actually are.
So where are we up to in the story?
We're building up to the climax now.
They've all gone mad. Flashing lights, they're all screaming with their hands over their ears.
He has to bring up Michael O'Leary from Ryanair and say, it's not worked. Oh, sorry, I got a bit ahead of myself. But I swear we're on it.
I did love him in that point where he sat in his dressing gown and his toupee's all... his toupee looks like Ernie Weiser's toupee. It just
Can you see the join?
Yeah.
Then the washing machine man comes and takes over their lab.
Yeah, of course.
And it's all gone to shit for everyone. There's a chap who's younger than us, who looks older than us, who's in the Tenko shed.
Ian Cuthbertson.
Yeah, he has an argument
with him, doesn't he?
Yeah, to say, like, I know you fancy her, you can have her now because I'm not interested anymore.
Because I've got a new bit of stuff.
He tells...
I've got a new coffee-making receptionist.
He sends Jane Asher off on a 2-month sabbatical because money's no object in the...
in the 70s.
In the 70s.
Go to your union, you stupid woman. Tell Barbara Castle, you've got seatbelts, what more do you want, you stupid cow?
And then I'm thinking of carrying up your convenience now. Carrying at your convenience. Then he starts sleeping with someone else, but then something happens, and then she goes back into the room.
Into the haunted room.
And then this is my favourite part of the whole thing, where there's a massive 70s psychedelic ghost experience with lots of weird
first of all,
light.
she sees the 2 things, which was for me the best bit. When it looks like there's two red eyes.
Yeah. Yes.
It looks like there's 2 red eyes. I thought, oh, that's cool. But then they started moving around.
Well done.
But if they would have just kept them as the 2 red eyes, I think it would have been way more effective.
When they started moving, I didn't like it. But when they're just there in front of her, I can imagine seeing that myself and really filling my pants at that point. Because it's it just does look like 2 eyes, basically.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the red lights lead her into or chase her into the haunted room.
Yeah.
Lots of Radiophonic Workshop go absolutely nuts.
But really horrifying sounds as well, like really deep kind of like...
I will try and get these sounds into the podcast now.
Help me. Help. The stairs are actually leading somewhere now. No longer are they just leading into
nothing.
To nothing. They're leading up onto a roof or something. She climbs.
It looks like a Stonehenge type of monument vibe
it's
going on.
It's quite hard to
isn't
tell
it?
because it's so low fidelity.
It is like a monolith, isn't it, that she climbs to the top of. But there's a point where she grabs the handle on the wall, and the wall moves by about 2 feet because it's obviously made of paper.
Yeah, but she's very upset about it. and she climbs up, and then she falls off and dies.
So at this point, I was questioning, like, what she's seeing. Is this like a corrupted recording of some kind of horrible, malevolent force from the
prehistoric times? Yeah.
Yeah, because later on at this point, they mentioned 7,000 years ago, don't they, that she has worked out.
That's right, yeah.
I don't know how she's worked it out. But
just by typing it into the typewriter. Yeah, basically.
454, Queen of the South 1.
South 2.
Ancient, malevolent aliens 7,000 years ago.
S-E-V-E-N.
Hearts of the Midlothian.
Yeah. So is that like a horrible corrupted memory of, a bit like when in Star Trek the Motion Picture the transporter beams get mixed together. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
That's the most horrifying part of the whole film.
Yeah.
We got something back here, Captain. Thankfully, it didn't live long. Because it's the screaming noise. So it's like
almost as bad as the uniforms of that film.
Yeah, and the makeup on Spock as well. So is it some kind of weird corrupted, like they've lost the transmission?
I'm also listening to the audio version of the Children of the Stones at the moment. So at this point, I'm getting really confused with that. So you guys are going to have to carry on with the plot because I completely...
What I felt having watched it was, I thought it's very interesting. One of my favourite authors is a guy called Ian Sinclair. Nothing to do with horror or anything like that. And he's often associated with what they call like psychogeography. That notion that if you go and walk around a place, especially somewhere that's rich in history, that history is in some way implanted still in the modern era. You can still get a feeling, and an area develops a kind of feeling to it. And I thought, in many ways, that's kind of like the more legitimised version of what Nigel Kneale was getting at here. And as we've said throughout this, for me, that was as I watched it, I thought, oh, this has clearly gone on and had such a kind of a cultural impact. So I really enjoyed the cultural impact. I just wish it had been wrapped up inside a more dynamic plot. Or when she then goes into the whole, well, actually, this is something here from 7,000 years ago. It's like, oh, well, actually, now I'm interested. And that's only kind of really given lip service. That's never really, I know you can say that's the point. It's only supposed to be an hour. But for me, I wanted more of that. I wanted more druids.
Just the feel of that last bit made up for.
Oh, it's well worth it. It's all of it is very good. For me, for my little potted review, I think it's a very not modern, because it isn't modern now, but reading the Wikipedia about it, I saw that Nigel Kneale was a big fan of M.R. James, and I think that this is a very big attempt by Nigel Kneale to redo something like "Oh, Whistle and I'll Come to You," which is a man who unearths a whistle and he blows the whistle. It's an antique whistle, and that unleashes some kind of unseen malevolent force. And it's that act of basically a malevolent bed sheet. But I think it's the subtext is the dangers of messing with the past, digging up the past, which obviously we talked about with Sapphire and Steel as well. But it's like, don't necessarily mess with things that you don't necessarily know what you're kind of dealing with. And also, I think it's in that way as well. It's about a clash between skepticism and mysticism. So it's like Jane Asher is the one all along that believes in the ghosts and believes what's happening is an occurrence, whereas the men who are just retards, basically. Can I say retards these days? Probably not, can I? The men who are just basically idiots.
Mentally challenged, yeah.
The men are mentally challenged all the way through. Several points she goes to each man and tries to convince them of the truth of what's happening. And they're just like, oh, you stupid woman. They're not Renee from Hello, by the way. Oh, you stupid woman. Like, you're
No, they're trying to rationalise it. And by rationalising it, they're actually ignoring the power and the danger of it.
Yeah, which is what happens in Whistle and I'll Come to You, really, is that the main guy, whose name I've totally forgotten.
Badger from Wind of the Willows.
No, I'm talking about the story now. Professor Parkin can't really believe. The story sets out at the start that he doesn't believe in ghosts, and then the act of blowing the whistle actually brings a ghost to visit him, and the end, particularly of the BBC film version, is where you just see him at the end going,
sucking his thumb.
Oh no, and he sucks his thumb because he can't believe all of his belief structure has been thrown up in the air, which is kind of what happens at the end of this, because at the end, stupid Peter, who didn't believe Jane Asher all along, goes into the room and then hears the recording of her death.
Yeah.
Which is quite horrifying in itself, and then the last shot is just him screaming, going "No!"
Which is pretty much what he does for the whole thing, anyway.
So it ties itself up very neatly. It's really good. I mean, like James has said, the production values now, which let's face it, are nearly 50 years old, do let it down slightly, but I think the overwhelming power of the ideas, as always with Nigel Kneale stuff, are so strong that you can't really deny how clever it is. Because this guy was having these ideas first, and that's what's amazing. When you think of someone like
it's hard to have that, to take that into account 50 years after the fact.
Yeah.
That someone came up with this idea, which is now basically, it's mentioned in Ghost Adventures in America.
Literally everything. Yeah.
So, John, what would you give it out of 5?
10.
10 out of 5. You
10 out of 5.
You can't keep subverting the scoring structure of this.
Well, I would give it 5.
Okay.
He's a maverick.
Yeah. James, how about you? What do you think of the Stone Cape?
It was a 3 for me.
A 3?
Oh, is that your strongest so far, James?
No, I think
yes. Out of the things we've watched,
it gave Sapphire and Steel 3 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's good. Okay.
Mate, did you like it more than Sapphire and Steel, though, James?
Similar.
Really?
I can't. But both of them. But both of them introduced really interesting ideas.
Yeah.
Both of which were let down by the conventions of the time.
Yeah.
And the plot. So it's that I can't say I loved everything about it. It was amazing. I loved every second of it. But I did think some really interesting ideas here. So,
I think Ross and I are maybe less susceptible to screaming sexist 70s men. I don't know what that says about us.
No, I'm going to give it a 4. This is my favourite thing we've watched so far.
Okay,
cool.
Yes, like I said,
yeah,
I can see all of the dated aspects of it. However, it's the best version of that for me so far. The whole time it was fun to watch. Whereas some of the other, when we watch other things which are outdated, it's dragged. This didn't drag for me at all when I was watching it.
Well, it's feature length, 90 minutes, and it's whizzes by, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Really whizzes by compared to like Sapphire and Steel, which was like we said, the plotting was glacial on that, and it was
about the same length.
Yeah, it's about the same length, but without the 25 minutes of retreads of the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting.
The last 5 minutes or so actually had the same kind of impact that a modern day horror movie would give to me now. The same kind of like sort of chills and a feeling of discomfort and...
Oh, yeah, it's a tremendous ending because I think it's quite brave at that point to kill off someone who hasn't done anything wrong. She's not a baddie, is she? She's the main goodie, and she, for trying at every point to put everyone right, she just gets killed as a reward, which is really harsh and really quite a bleak ending.
And also, something I found in what we've done so far, 70s television don't give a shit about explaining half of what's going on the screen. And I really like that.
Yeah,
I like the fact that there was lots of things which are just very much allured to, and you fill in the gaps yourself. And afterwards you're left thinking, what the fuck happened there?
Well, it's great for imagination, but it's also great to think maybe that the writer thinks they're talking to an audience who isn't just made up of total idiots. Because if they mention stuff that you might know about, it's like, we don't have to explain everything that's happening here because the audience might be able to grasp the concept rather than writing these days, which is just like, it's like play school sometimes watching some stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to stop you before you slag off Doctor Who loads because I had to cut out half an hour of the last episode where you slagged off modern Doctor Who.
So anyway, Jodie Whittaker.
No. Right. So, that was Nigel Kneale's The Stone Tape.
That was Nigel Kneale's The Stone Tape. You ain't seen nothing yet. I really spat then. I'm glad you're not in the same room because you both have got COVID. I haven't got COVID, Mother, if you're listening.
So now we're going to talk about something horrific, something we would like to recommend to our listeners, which we may have... Well, originally the idea was it was something we recently experienced. However, because we're recording these quicker than we're releasing them...
Yeah, and because Cleaver watches way more stuff than me and James do, I realise that every waking moment of Ross's life, he's literally watching something.
Got something on in the background.
Yeah, gaffer tape to his head.
I'm just experiencing the world of media, and at the same time, stressing out
to the toilet,
and stressing out that I'm not experiencing it quick enough because there's more and more stuff being added to my watch, and I've recently finished reading a book called What Happens Now by Jeremy Dyson. So Jeremy Dyson is one of the League of Gentlemen. He's also an author who's written a lot of mine and James's favourite anthology series of books. Also, he was the co-writer of Ghost Stories, which was a huge success in the West End as a ghost play and was adapted for a recent film. I wasn't aware that he'd actually written a novel because I know that he's done 3 or 4 collections of short stories now. Some of them more linked together than others. But the other day when I was picking up
Never Trust the Rabbit.
Never Trust the Rabbit, which is a book.
And we're going to be doing it for one of our upcoming...
We will be covering that for an episode coming up.
Upcoming episode.
But I didn't realise that he did this novel called What Happens Now. And it was completely not what I expected. I was expecting this to be a very horror-focused story. It wasn't. However, there are some really disturbing aspects of this, and there are some parts where you feel like it may be seeping into supernatural areas, but it doesn't quite go there. It's a story of a young Jewish lad who is picked out of his school to be in a BBC drama series, which is, I think it's called Now and Then, where they do different plays, one based in the past, one based in the present, and the two plays will have some kind of linking theme between it. And he's been picked out to be in a play which is based in, it's very much sort of an Anne Frank sort of story, where there's a family who are in hiding in the Second World War from the Nazis in a basement underneath a restaurant, and eventually they are captured by the Nazis. So he gets picked out from school to go and do this. But it's also set in the present day, where he is an adult, and also a young girl who's in the play with him then is also an adult. And you're following him as a child, going to the rehearsals, going to the BBC television centre for the first time, being completely overwhelmed by the whole aspect of being put into a television programme. So you got that going on in the past, but in the present, you know something terrible has happened at some point to these characters, which has really messed up the boy and the girl's life. And then you keep going backwards and forwards, and you can see him falling in love with this young girl, and like he's really like, and it's so well observed about the whole feeling of like having a crush on someone, you know, trying to work out, how do I tell them? The whole fear of like exposing yourself, that feeling, it ain't so much exposing your feelings.
All right.
And okay, but I don't want to spoil it, but how when the present and the past come together, it's such a horrible and harrowing event that happens.
Oh.
It was almost like, I wish I hadn't read that, because it was such a horrible thing that happened, and it was just so heartbreaking because you so wanted it to turn out well.
And does it turn out well?
Not at all. It's awful.
No.
What happened? But however, it's such a well-written, powerful book.
Would you like to reach out to Jeremy here now, Ross?
Well, I already have on Twitter, and he has liked my outreach of like,
Nice.
This is really horrible. I wish I
hadn't read your book.
There's not many books I read now that, apart from The Rats, which afterwards I have, it affects me. It was really well written. There were a couple of weird things which I thought, is it going to go down that route? Is it going to go down that route? But it didn't. But great. So I really highly recommend What Happens Now by Jeremy Dyson. Great book.
Well, my one is one that I freely admit, I know this is normally recommendations, but this is something that I haven't read yet. But just the description alone, and bearing in mind that obviously because we're doing this podcast, I'm thinking a lot more about kind of horror and the supernatural of late. This was something that I saw a really good review of and said it was brilliant. And when I read it, I thought, God, that's right up our street. That's fantastic. And it's a novel called The Apparition Phase by Will MacLean. And I shall read you the blurb from the inside cover. And it says, reminiscent of the gothic suspense of Shirley Jackson and the ghost stories of M.R. James, touchstone for our podcast, The Apparition Phase is an atmospheric and stunning debut. Tim and Abby have always been different from their peers, precociously bright. They spend their evenings in their parents' attic discussing the macabre and unexplained, zealously rereading books on folklore, hauntings and the supernatural. In particular, they're obsessed with photographs of ghostly apparitions and the mix of terror and delight they provoke in their otherwise safe and boring childhood. But when Tim and Abby decide to fake a photo of a ghost to frighten an unpopular school friend, they set in motion a deadly and terrifying chain of events that neither of them could have predicted, and are forced to confront the possibility that what began as a callous prank might well have taken on a malevolent life of its own. An unsettling literary ghost story set in the early 1970s between a claustrophobic British suburban town and a menacing Suffolk manor, The Apparition Phase is an unnerving novel which pushes us repeatedly over the line between rational explanation and inexplicable fear. Like all the best ghost stories, it questions what is real and what is simply a trick of the mind, and whether there's really a difference between the two. Great, huh?
Have you started it at all?
No, I haven't started it yet.
Okay.
No.
You're going to have to give us an update as to how it goes.
Absolutely. But you know how you just think, yes, straight away.
Well, I'm just going to remind you, though, when we had our Creeping Armstrong podcast, you were really saying how amazing the A-Team movie was going to be.
I know. I was so
excited.
Joe Carnahan, and I thought, this is going to be great. No, it wasn't. It wasn't great.
So Watch Your Space with James either saying that book was amazing or it was 18 movie shit.
I got a bit overexcited before seeing the actual final products, yes.
I recently listened to Children of the Stones.
Have you heard the whole thing?
I've heard the whole thing, and it links in nicely to what we've just reviewed, obviously because the word stone is in the title. The main man in Michael Bryant's character in Shouty Man in the Stone Tapes is very similar to Reece Shearsmith's portrayal of the main character in the new version of Children of the Stones.
Yeah.
But also Ian Cuthbertson was in the original TV version of the Children of the Stones, playing the character that Reece Shearsmith is playing.
Whew, well done.
It's really good.
I'm about halfway through it at the moment.
It's really good. It's very high camp, and I found it very entertaining. I won't give anything away about the story, but it is really good fun, and I enjoyed it very much.
There's certain points where I completely lost track of what the fuck was going on.
Kind of, yes.
The point where the child turned into a stone, and she was like telling the story from the point of view of a stone. The whole episode, I didn't realise that was what was happening.
No.
And when they talk about the black hole and all that kind of stuff, it was like, what the fuck's going on here? I have seen the original TV version, and it's equally as baffling as...
I haven't seen the original. I'd quite like to watch the original.
It's got Blake in it, Blake 7.
Yeah, so that he's the father, I presume, of the girl. So yeah, the girl in the new version is the girl who is the girl in the new version of Wurzel Gummidge.
I thought it was, and I would to say I love the new version of Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah, I really like the new version of Wurzel Gummidge.
Pretty much all the way through. It's so moving. It's so good. Mackenzie Crook is brilliant, and I don't know if you guys have seen The Detectoress.
No.
However,
do you cry all the way through that as well?
Yes,
please?
Because it's just brilliant. You've got to watch it, John. Me and Beck, the whole time, me and Beck.
There we go. And what's this going to be? There's an ugly fat man on there. Every time me and Beck watch it, we go, "Oh, look, it's John Pountney."
No. We just pretty much articulate in different ways the whole time watching that. This is what England's like. This is what England's like. This is what England's like. If we were going to tell someone in another country what England's like, this is what England's like, and it's. I think so many people think England is like London. How London is what London's like, no. whereas the whole I find that Mackenzie Crook puts across such a good articulation.
He is Mr. England.
He is Mr. But he's someone who puts across a love of the English or the British countryside.
Yeah. Very good.
So
very good
well.
Point. Yeah.
And he did it so well in Detectoress. It's such a loving feeling of the type of people who live in this country and what this country is like.
And I think that's Wurzel Gummidge. He managed that as well.
Exactly. He's pulled that across into Wurzel Gummidge. It's beautiful.
Yeah. The cinematography for Wurzel Gummidge was amazing.
Ross, is it what England's like?
It's exactly what England's like.
This is England.
It is what my version of England is like.
This is my England.
This is my England.
And then you zoom out, and England is the shape of Cleaver's face, like Jim Bergerac at the start. Boom, boom, boom.
An accordion comes in, doesn't it? For the French feel.
For the French feel.
Join us next time on the General Witch Hiders podcast, where we cover the satanic rites of Dracula.
To finish our Dracula Hammer double header that we never decided we were going to do, but we are going to do it now. So join us next week for more Joanna Lumley appreciation.
Or the week after next week. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Happy day.
Happy day. Oh, love, light and peace.
You have been listening to The General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
If you let me in, Cleves, I'm there knocking on the door.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. It's the better version, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yes, that's great.
Is she a great big fat person?
Yeah, she's a big fat person.
Right. She puts the lotion in his skin.
She puts the lotion in the basket.
Put the lotion in the motherfucking basket.
I'd fuck me.
Anyway, on that bombshell.
Whoop.
Yeah.
My laptop's just fallen over.
What the hell is going on, please? So my something horrific this week is, even though it's not this week, these podcasts don't come out every week, or do they? I don't know.
Fortnightly.
Fortnightly. So this might...
Start again. John, you've disappeared. Have you run out of batteries? John? 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 I think John might have run out of batteries. He's just disappeared. John's just disappeared. I think he might have run out of batteries.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Bat gone again. What? Wait there, he's saying. I don't know if he's going to be able to...
Got to run downstairs.
I don't know if he's going to be able to rejoin the recording.
Oh.
God.
And we never heard from John
Look how big my hair is getting now. It's ridiculous. I look like George Lucas. I'm so desperate for a piss again. I drank a whole bottle of...
What's the matter with your bladder, mate?
I drank a whole bottle of wine.
Yeah, but even still.
So, join us next time.
James hasn't done his. Yeah,
he has.
I have.
But your battery's run out. So join us next time.
To see.
Join us! Join us!
Join us next time to see how far Cleaver can slip down in his bed.
I'm going to wee myself in a minute. Join us next time on the General Witchfinders podcast, where we cover the satanic rites of Dracula.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
To finish
See you next time.
Oh, hang on, I'm still talking.
He's still talking.
Sorry.
Oh, fuck.
I think we should make a video of this. Are you recording the video?
No.
Oh,
I need a wee.
Keep talking, Sean.
To finish our Dracula Hammer double header that we never decided we were going to do, but we are going to do it now. So join us next week for more Joanna Lumley appreciation.
Or the week after next week.
And the week after next week.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Please
just
subscribe.
Keep looking at your podcast.
Tell your friends. Support us on Patreon. But also, please review us on something like Apple Podcasts and like that. We were at one point in the top 50 for film history Apple Podcasts
in the world, in the UK. Yeah. But we're now in the top 200, and John every day tweets me or texts me or WhatsApps me. Where are we on that chart? And we are slipping further and further down that chart. Well, since about week 2, we haven't actually done a film, so that's probably why we're not in the film history podcast.
Okay, well, but please, help us.
Okay.
Help
us help you.
Our whole our whole sense of self is based on what position we are
We've got so
on.
much content for you
to
fill your empty lives.
I need a wee. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Happy day.
Happy day. Oh, love, light and peace.
Excellent. Well done.